It's only wasted if you don't drink it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't drink the bit at the very bottom. I know what's good for me or what's bad for me.
Keeps you regular.
Don't drink from the bottom, yeah?
Who else have we got coming? We've got Stu and Paul Henderson having difficulty at the bottom, and Russell.
Russell was there earlier.
Yeah, and I think Mick's
Shame.
doing this as well.
No, I'm not having difficulty. I'm just taking my
Undressing.
cake.
Cool. Right. Rob, did you want to tell us about RO water?
Oh, does he have to?
Yeah, I should unmute them, really, shouldn't I? Yeah, hang on. Let's see if this.
Found out how to make him bigger.
Yeah.
Double tap him on the forehead.
Buy me dinner first. Does everyone see that?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. I'll just have a quick run through of it. If anyone's got any questions during, just yell at me, and we will stop and talk about it, because it's just a basic overview, really. Oh, I left that on, did I? Yeah. Just gonna,
Who's
like
that?
what the whole point of RO is, and whether it's worthwhile. That is lovely. Oh God, what did I do there? There we go. Oh, there, yeah. Okay, so go back a bit to your GCSE science, which I'm sure everyone remembers, about osmosis. Osmosis, obviously, a very important biological process, fundamental to all life, but it doesn't really help us, because the point of water is that if you separate two batches of water, one with a high concentration of stuff and one with a low, the water will flow from the low concentration to the high concentration, which in our case is the exact opposite of what we want. Okay, so our water, if we look at the concentration here, in our case, that's probably things like carbonates and salts that we're trying to clear out of the water. Naturally, by itself, separated by a semi-permeable membrane, the water will flow this way.
Which way was that?
This way. Someone had an arrow before. That's actually. How have you guys got an arrow and I haven't? Annotate.
Who's got an arrow?
I haven't got an arrow.
No, these arrows, they're all going the wrong way. So imagine the opposite of these arrows.
Yeah.
Yeah, the water that way. Yeah. So if we go back.
From right to left.
Yeah. Oh, no, wrong way. So, yeah, the water here, this is the clean, good brewing liquor that we want to use. This is our terrible London high carbonate tap water. The water will go this way. And this gap here is what we can think of as the osmotic head. So the difference in pressure between the one side and the other. The way reverse osmosis works is that you apply external pressure to overcome that difference. So in the systems that we're most likely to be looking at, the pressure is applied by your mains water pressure. So you plug it straight into the mains, and effectively that forces the water through the same sort of membrane and reverses the process of osmosis. It's a bit like those coffee makers with the plungers that not the cafetières, I've forgotten the name. But yeah, it's basically forcing the water through the filter and getting the better brewing liquor out of the other side. So reverse osmosis in general will filter pretty much everything, really. What you're getting out the other side, depending on how effective your system is between 10 and 5% pure water. A lot of these we're not going to be very concerned about. Like if you've got radioactivity in your water, you're probably having a bad day anyway. What we're really concerned about is bicarbonates, chlorides, sulfates, sodiums, things of that ilk. And of those, it will take out 95 to 99% of the things. So it's not quite distilled water you're getting out the other end, but it is pretty close. The big complicated thing about reverse osmosis that makes it hard to just jump in and get one if you want it is the number of different stages involved. So I've seen for sale osmosis systems up to like 7 stages. The vast majority of those are like, a lot of them are nonsense really. Some of them you don't need, some of them are actively detrimental to what we would use them for. And some of them are just marketing gumph. But generally speaking, one filter will be a pre-filter. That's a pretty important one because the reverse osmosis membrane is very delicate. So you need a pre-filter to stop large particles, bits of grit, dust, dirt, anything like that, getting and damaging the more delicate parts inside. I think with London water, generally, I don't think we have too much of a problem with that sort of large particles, but that just means your filter will last longer, which is probably good. Another one that you'll have, I think almost all systems have, is a carbon filter, although that might be sometimes included with the pre-filter. So chlorine is also very damaging to your delicate reverse osmosis membrane, and the carbon filter will filter out the chlorine and also any volatile organic chemicals, which you don't really want. The bit doing all the main work is this one, the membrane filter. It does come in different types, different sizes, different qualities. I think a lot of that might be marketing gumph, like don't hold me to it, but I'm not really sure. But this is the one that is going to do the bulk of the filtering work, removing all the stuff that we need removed. After that, you often have an activated carbon block. This one I'm not too sure about. I haven't been able to find out exactly what it does. A lot of the stuff says that it polishes water. I don't know what that means really. You can't polish water. Most of them say that it improves the taste. So if you're also going to be drinking the RO water that you produce, I think that could be important. If you're just using brewing liquor, I suspect it's probably not really vital. This last one, a lot of them have. This is something that you want to avoid. A lot of them will have a remineralizing filter, which is obviously exactly the opposite of what we want to do. This will put back a lot of the, well, not some of the carbonates and salts that it takes out to make it a more palatable drink. So I think this is really for people who are using RO systems as a source of good potable water rather than for brewing or anything like that. So this 5th filter you definitely want to avoid. Most of the ones I've seen are either 3 or 5. And some of them will have like 2 of these carbon filters in, like one before the pre-filter and one after, and then another one after the membrane filter. Yeah, I mean, if you read it and you like the sound of what it says it does, I can't see any harm in it. But I don't know, I got a 3-stage filter and I think it's working out all right, really.
Sorry, Rob, in the 3-stage filter, what does it miss out? Is it just those last 2 stages, or is it?
Yeah, so it wouldn't have this remineralizing. It's got the pre-filter and a carbon filter together, then the membrane filter, and then this activated carbon block. So, Yeah, and
Cool.
yeah. So yeah, this is it here, and you can see the filters here. This PP is the pre-filter. So your feed water comes in here where this red toggle is, and it sort of goes through this next one, and then and then out here.
The big one in the middle is the membrane.
Yeah, that's your main thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and that thing at the bottom is just a spare.
That's what goes in there. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. They say that you should replace them every year, but I haven't. So I suppose if you've been used to measuring like hardness in your water with maybe those Salifert kits or something like that, just measure it every so often. If you notice the hardness of you're getting go up, then yeah, maybe start looking to replace filters.
You can also get online for a few pounds a total dissolved solid meter, TDS, and they're literally like £5 or less or something, and that will give you an instant read as to what's in there. It just gives you a number, which isn't particularly useful, but it does tell you essentially what's in the water, if there is any volume of stuff in the water. So when you see that number creeping up, you can to replace your filters then.
Yeah, precisely. You can also get them as part of the systems. Like some of the fancier ones will have a TDS meter and a pressure gauge. So a pressure gauge is a good one. If you see the pressure start to go down, pressure starts to go down, it means your pre-filter is probably not working as well as it should. So that's always a good clue as well. But yeah, you can get fairly fancy ones. So if you're choosing a system, the first thing to look at is a number of stages. I'd say either 3 or 5. You wouldn't need any more than that. You can also get like compact systems, or what they call like briefcase systems, that seem very plug and play, but they tend to use smaller cartridges that don't last as long and are more expensive to replace. So a lot like printers, you want to factor in the replacement cost of cartridges before you press fire on which system you're going to use. It will also make a difference where you put it as well. This is where I've got my one. I assume, like many of us, my ability to brew depends a lot on keeping my brewing stuff out of the way. This is under my sink. So
Nice bit of caustic soda you got there, Rob.
Yeah, yeah. I cleared out most of the stuff. I've also got a dehumidifier because it leaked a lot. Like, every so often it does leak a bit, and I can't figure out why. I think the easiest would be if you've got like a shed or something, or some like set up brewing area, you could just plug this into a hose pipe, let it output into your hot liquor tank, stop it when it's full. I think that'd be a perfect way to do it, but I can't leave my stuff out.
You don't want it to freeze either, Rob.
Oh yeah, that's
membrane up.
Yeah, if you you might want to invest in heating for your brewing shed as well. So what I've done here is replace where the dishwasher and the washing machine plug in to the mains water below the sink with like a Y splitter. So they're still there behind, but this is where I get fresh water for cleaning and stuff, and this is permanently plumbed in. That goes into this and outputs through there. I can show you where it outputs. So where the water goes is also a problem. I've got this attached to like a float valve, like you have in your toilet cistern. So it'll run until this jerry can is full and then shut off, because you don't want it running all the time, because you can't actually see it here. The wastewater, is that someone? Oh no. The wastewater is there's something called a saddle valve that it basically just drills through the plastic U-bend under the sink, and all the wastewater goes in there. You don't want it running all the time because otherwise it would just be dripping wastewater through. So when it's full and the ball valve closes, the pressure builds up and the system stops outputting. So yeah, we basically have this sitting here. Mostly it's been quite a good way of doing it. It's a bit small is the problem. I'd prefer it if it was at least the same volume as my strike water, so that I could fill my kettle up the night before and then just come back and it would fill up overnight again. It's quite slow to fill, but at the moment I have to collect the water off like a few days before, store it somewhere so that I've got enough liquor available on the brew day. So but then with a bigger one I don't really know where I would put it, so it's
how big is that?
I think it's about 35, but there's no real way to get a sorry, I'm pointing at the screen, you can't see where I'm pointing. There's no real way to get a dip tube there to get the last at the bottom, so effectively it's only about 25, and if I pick it up and then all these connections come apart and stuff, so it works, but it's a little bit awkward how I've got it set up at the moment.
Yeah, you could siphon
How long does that take to fill?
That'll fill in about a day.
Okay.
About 24 hours, I'd say. So if I set up all my brewing stuff here, empty that, it'll be about half to 2/3 full by the next day.
And I'm not sure if I'm preempting you here, but do you cut that with normal tap water?
Generally, no. It depends a lot on the beer we're brewing. So with darker beers, yeah, I would just cut that. But I think I've only done pales for a while actually, and I just keep it like this and put calcium chloride in until I've got 50 parts per million calcium. Really, it's a basic thing. Like before, I was fussing a lot more about it, and I think that is one of the advantages, is that you can really dial in like everything like completely freely if you want to. So whether or not it even makes a difference, it's hard to do a side-by-side comparison because it involves 2 brew days, preferably happening at exactly the same time. It's one of the things I'm confident it makes a difference, because generally speaking, focusing on water chemistry does make a difference. Whether RO water is better than any other water for your water chemistry adjustments, like, no, it's not intrinsically better or worse. It depends a lot on your circumstances, if it's a useful and convenient way of doing it. I did do a sort of an experiment with cold brew coffee, because I thought, well, beer's not the only thing you can brew. So I made a couple of liters with reverse osmosis and with tap water, and there was definitely a difference between the two. So and kind of how you would expect it to be as well. Like the tap water coffee tasted stronger, it was more full-bodied, more roughly roasted. The reverse osmosis, on the other hand, much smoother. So in our sample size of 2 in the flat that we're prepared to give coffee to, it was fairly evenly split as to which we preferred. So there is a difference.
Could you blend it?
If the meeting was going ahead, then the next plan would be, I suspect with coffee, probably as with beer, like 25% tap water would probably be about the right sort of ratio for that sort of thing. So I put or making tea, like my tea is much better when I use the reverse osmosis water with just like a little bit of tap water in the kettle. You don't get that weird scum on the top of the cup. And you don't have to descale your kettle every week, which you generally have to in London. Yeah, so like it does have utility around the house. Or things like making up star sand, it's quite good for. Like a final rinse on things, so you watermark on like your glassware and stuff like that. So yeah, it could be something you could sell as having non-brewing utility.
Have you been bathing in it, Rob? Is that how your skin is so radiant?
Yeah. Yeah. Except the osmosis would take all the water out of me, wouldn't it? I'd be all desiccated.
You get a creamier shaving lather.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it does help the beer, but then like as we said before, like a focus on water chemistry will help your beer. But yeah, so is it worth it? That it's not a silver bullet that will improve everything. It's saying it as part of your water chemistry approach, as a way of dealing with London's very hard water. I've found it very helpful. It does give you a blank slate to build up like whatever you want for it. I've got a few brownie points by making up like specific mineral waters. You can get even the most fancy and expensive mineral waters. They put the recipe for it right on the side of the bottle. Just buy the salts on eBay and make up kegs of the stuff. You can put it on your kegerator and have like fancy mineral water whenever you want. But yeah, and so you can dial in those exact chemical compositions if you want to or need to. Before I had this, I was modifying my tap water, which is eminently doable. My problem was I was putting in huge amounts of acid to counteract the alkalinity of the tap water, like 15, sometimes maybe I put 20 mils of acid in one, like big amounts. And it's hard to say for certain, but I was beginning to think you got some sort of lacticness from the neutralized acid carry through from the beer. I've got no idea if it actually did, but I was beginning to think I could taste it. So it's a big improvement over that. If you can get vast amounts of bottled water easily or conveniently, that's probably a better option. So like we don't drive, we can't really get deliveries so easily, so I'd say it's better than modifying your tap water. But if you've got a good source of good brewing water already, it's just over egging the case really to have this as well. So in the end, like focusing on water chemistry, we can consider it quite an advanced topic. It's not going to make a bad beer brilliant. It's something of a refinement. So we can think of this as a refinement on a refinement. It's basically admitting it's of usefulness to probably quite few people. Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, so it's one of those things. If you find useful, and there are other utilities for it apart from brewing, then it might be a good option. One of the big cons of it is the amount of wastewater it produces. I've heard things between like 3 and 5 to 1. So for every litre of brewing liquor you're producing, you're wasting anywhere from 2, if your system is working exceptionally well, to maybe 5 or 6 litres just go straight down the drain. Like, of course, you can collect that and use it as grey water for cleaning and washing or anything else like that, but it is something to think about when installing a system.
Yeah, in a homebrew scenario, you're not you're not really thinking about that, are you? You're not thinking about where the waste is going, because it's just going down the drain and you never see it again. You never have to talk to the council or any of these people that deal with that kind of thing. But now, that's a bit of a concern. How much? I mean, because there's quite a lot of wastage anyway with brewing and water, and you've just like added another load on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking even with my like cleaning, how I like clean stuff, I'm wasting a lot of water there.
Is it wasting it? I mean, it's going back into the system, and it's not like you're dumping it on your garden. I mean, and in terms of cost, there's last time I looked at it, I think it was something like £2.50 for 1,000 litres.
Maybe it's not wasting it, but it is profligate.
Yeah, it's something that worries me, that it's basically clean water that you're like, you say it is going back into the system, but
you're probably wasting as much as you chuck in a great big having a luxury bath. So just cut one out.
I don't have them anyway.
There you go then, Ken. You're already an environmental champion.
But it's not going back into the system, because it's going through wastewater, which in many cases doesn't get cleaned or purified back into consumable water into it. So you're effectively reducing the overall pool of drinkable water.
No, you're not. When it goes down the drain, that goes back into the overall. That is going back into
drinking water. Well, it is in London.
Yeah.
I mean, but we're assuming here a London scenario, which actually doesn't really apply for most of the world. Once it's going down the drain, it's literally going down the drain, and it doesn't re-enter.
We are London amateur brewers.
I must say though, that with the so-called wastewater. I mean, I end up at the end of a brew day, because of using a counterflow chiller, with reasonable amount of, say, hot water, 30, 40 litres or something. It's a good excuse to then get my son to wash the car or whatever. I mean, the water doesn't, in our household, none of it goes to waste. What's
it taste like, the wastewater? Has anyone tasted it? What's it taste like? Because it can't be that much more salts in it. Anyone taste it?
No, I did try it first time when I got it, and it's like not much different from the normal water. It'd be like more concentrated, harder.
Yeah, bottle it and sell it.
If you were to do a blind test, sorry.
Yeah, a triangle test on the wastewater.
Yeah. No joking. What?
Yeah.
But then they do say you mustn't drink it. If you were to have that as just your only water supply, I think it's going to be you're just filtering out absolutely everything, aren't you? But what can be so bad if you're creating 5 times as much wastewater as you are collecting the stuff? That means you are putting into that an extra, is it 20% of the bits and bobs that were in there in the first place?
And I think a lot of the cautions of it, that, like, especially in the US, I think they're often used by people who have only marginally safe drinking water at the best of times, kind of thing. So they could be on the line between it being safe and not safe, whereas we're like in London, at least, I don't think we're.
Yeah.
Anyway. They're popular in America, where they're often using groundwater. I mean, wells and water sourced locally.
Yeah.
So they're trying to avoid, particularly in America, things like bacteria and so on, which I noticed that they will remove. I mean, if nothing else, you're getting a very high quality water which hasn't got any organics in it and so on. So, I mean, another advantage of it is not only removing the unwanted things like carbonates and so on, but you're also removing anything else that could be in that water that you wouldn't want to drink. I'm not saying London water is that rubbish, but
you are. But what you're also doing is you're removing those things that you do want in your water.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, the RO water itself is not particularly pleasant to drink either. Like it's not.
And it's not recommended drinking it either as your main water source.
Yeah.
Right.
Osmosis again.
Yeah.
Rob, if you were starting over, would you do it again?
Yeah, I think so. It's been a pretty useful addition. I think that when I bought it, I thought it would be a bit of a flippant toy, but no, I use it. I think it's helped simplify my approach to water chemistry, so you don't have to worry about compositions of bottled water or how much carbonates you're removing with acid from your tap water and things like that. I'm quite pleased with it.
How about, did you touch on how much they were, Rob?
I think I got mine for about 50 quid from Malt Miller. I think between 50 and 70 on there. And I got it, they're much cheaper elsewhere, like eBay's full of them. I think places like...
Yeah, you can get them from, I think I got mine for 30 quid.
Yeah.
So I've used RO twice. The first time I went down the local fish shop, because a lot of it's tropical fish tanks use RO water. You take them a vessel and they have a tank of it and they'll fill it up. I think I paid 5 quid for 30 litres or so. So you're getting your money back pretty quick if you're going to buy RO water.
Yeah.
The second time I used a friend's RO kit, took ages to make all the water, but it chugged it out.
Yeah.
That's a good thing there is if you can get hold of it, like you did, Lee, to just try it out, see what sort of a difference it makes to a brew that and whether it's going to be a worthwhile thing for you. So it's good to know that there are places where you can get hold of some without having to fork out on the kit.
What you also could do is get 25 liters of distilled water from Amazon delivered for $12.50, and that's even more pure than RO.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been using to cut tap water to proportions that I need.
How much? 25 litres of...
For about $12.50 delivered.
Right. Okay.
You do maths, Mark.
That's probably more expensive than something like Ashbeck.
It is definitely more expensive. Well, actually, Ashbeck, yeah, it is more expensive for sure.
Yeah,
but it's
like 99p for 5 litres.
Yeah, but it has all minerals removed.
Yeah, and I found when I was trying to use more bottled water, I didn't have a Tesco near me, and it was quite hard to find bottled water that wasn't exactly the same composition as my tap water.
And you're using loads of plastic and bottled water, right? I mean,
yeah, you are. Good point.
The RO system, you're not using any.
Yeah, there's a load of wastewater, but then again, when I used to buy bottled water, I used to go down to Tesco's and get, because I have 80 litres at a time. So that's 40 plastic bottles of Chase Spring or whatever it is, which you see knocking around. And it's just, it's pretty sad, all that plastic that you're having to chuck away then. Yeah, it's recyclable, but...
yeah. Well, the one that I got arrived in a single canister of 25.
Yeah.
Amazon. Yeah, straight from the Amazon.
Yeah.
Right.
I use Amazon water from near the source.
It doesn't seem to be going to the next slide, but it was the last slide that just said conclusion on anyway. So, and I think we've talked about the conclusion. So, yeah, that's...
one thing, Rob, I'd like to know, when you had your tremendously successful, was it a Czech Pilsner?
Yeah.
At BrewCon 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Was that using RO?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Look, enough said.
Can't prove it.
Yay.
Credentials.
Yeah. Do you think it made a difference to that beer?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can do it with bottled water. And before that, I was doing with tap water. but I think you're running on finer margins there. I think with the RO, because you're using small, tiny amounts of acid to make the adjustment and salts to get in the right ballpark, you don't have to be nearly so precise. I think it gives you a little bit of wobble room.
So when you did that, did you add anything back into the water as well?
Yeah, so hang on, okay, I can load it up. So yeah, I like my basic strategy now for like lagers and stuff. Is that coming up or
No.
no? Yeah, no, I can't actually click on anything now, and I'm not sure why. Yeah, so I basically just do effectively with like pale lagers and stuff, just put enough calcium chloride in that I'm getting 50 parts per million calcium for yeast health, and then a tiny bit of acid to get about right with the mash pH. But yeah, I find that a lot easier than putting in big amounts of acid, which then if your water is maybe, I don't know if it happened once or twice, if your water is not as hard as you thought it was, if it's changed a little bit, then suddenly you've put in loads of acid that maybe you didn't need to, if it's not all buffered like that.
So if you take 5 gallons and you carbonate it, can you enter in a competition as Bud Light?
Yeah, should be able to.
I think it'd be too high quality. I think
Too much flavour.
Yeah.
Don't forget the colouring.
Yeah.
Out of interest, does London tap water vary that much from area to area?
I've looked around a bit, and it's like normally 200 to 280 parts per million calcium carbonate. It seems to be all similar. So no, it's all hard to very hard, fairly low in the other ions, perfectly drinkable, perfectly usable.
Yeah.
So yeah, that just seems to cover the London, the southeast, and a lot of the south of England, just because everything's on chalk.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I was wondering about this, whether if everyone in a particular area is in theory brewing, say, the same recipe, everyone should be putting in similar additions or whatever to get to the desired water profile. I'm just wondered whether people are sort of finding they're putting in similar amounts, say, of acids or whatever to correct.
Well, we had a page in the forums, and didn't we? Everybody was taking measurements and posting what their results were.
Oh, right.
It was mostly just me, though.
And you have to have the same grist then, don't you, with just pale malt? Because as soon as you start adding the dark malts in, you can change it anyway. But yeah.
I mean, adding the dark malts in brewing beer in London, I mean, the amount of acids and things that you have to add is negligible. You can almost make a porter or something without adulterating the water at all.
Which is arguably why London is famous for porters.
Yeah.
I find with like a strong porter, a strong stout, I can not add anything, and I've got very hard water, and it's perfect pH wise.
Right. Yeah.
On the other hand,
got an niche Surrey where you are,
Pilsner.
James.
Yeah, Epsom in Surrey. So.
Rob?
Oh, sorry, were you looking at that?
No, if it's done.
I mean, equally on the other hand, like
Hello, James.
it's not going to be any good for something like a Czech Pils.
Yeah. No, but generally speaking, the water that we get, particularly in London, is very utilitarian. It's easily adjustable to most of the beers that we want to make, except for like those lagers. Yeah, I can understand if you're really into making Pilsners, particularly Czech ones or some of the German ones, then you might want to go down the RO water route. Otherwise, you can use London water for pretty much anything.
Has anyone seen any of the London breweries using a big RO system?
Yes, Moncada.
Moncada do.
Yeah, they do nearly everything with RO.
Okay.
They just.
I've not seen
like
others.
nobody's business. It's unreal.
Yeah, I know a guy who runs a rather large brewery in Cambridge, and they're entirely RO. I think it's 12 barrels.
Actually, on Moncada, their West Coast IPA, don't remember the name, uses RO without any minerals added.
Wow. Is it any good?
I don't remember. Not really the style I drink.
So the one place I've seen it was War Pigs in Copenhagen, and they had a big RO system, and all their IPAs are fantastic, but I found their stouts just very thin and a bit lifeless.
Yeah.
The Moncada thing is Steve here? Where is he? He was a bit ago. When we did the brew day last year, everyone used the RO water, but Steve got his all mixed up. I seem to remember.
That's
not right, Mr. Smith. And you didn't use the RO. You used the standard stuff out the tap.
Yeah.
And who was it who won? Yeah, there you go.
Oh, hey, while you're there, gentlemen, I've been working on the label. So gone off to the printer already. I printed it out and stuck it on a bottle, being like us nerdy.
Hey, pretty good.
Nice, bro.
Up a bit.
Lab logo.
Awesome.
On the beer, and squeezed mine on as well. Sorry about that.
Nice one.
Get great.
It's going to be in bottles and kegs. But where? Who knows? They're doing delivery. You know, this day and age. But yeah, excitingly, that's what it would look like if you were ever to be able to find one in a shop.
We should get a crate ordered to Southwark or something for a meeting.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have loads left over.
At least you've got an excuse, Steve.
Got loads of beer to drink. Who's in?
Steve?
Yeah.
Has it been bottled already?
Don't think so. No, it was going to be.
Because obviously after the brew day, it was supposed to be bottled 2 weeks later, but then all this shit went down.
I know. It's like literally our last day out.
It was. That was the last day I went out.
Yeah, and then everything was shut down the following night. Bars were shut down the lot. It was going to be 3 weeks.
Could I just ask what inspired the name?
Originally, it was called Mo Tucker's New Zealand Farmhouse because it had Motueka in it.
Right. Yeah, but just wondering whether it was a spiritualised reference.
It was.
Must be.
Yes, good spot. So we've got
what does it say? I can't see it.
So it is floating in Ace.
Yeah. That's what I wondered.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are floating in Ace. Didn't fit. Ladies and gentlemen, Ace is the spiritualized song. And it didn't use Motueka. We used Kazbek and Sorachi Ace in the end. So
right.
It wasn't Motueka. It wasn't New Zealand. So we went for something that would fit in the label. And I just wanted to use the longest name possible. When we are floating in space, Ace.
And the key thing is...
Good spot, Jerome.
The key thing is, Steve, they probably used RO water.
So the beer I had made at No Frills Joe was in exactly the same situation. It was all about to go out. I think he put it in casks, and I'm assuming he hasn't sold any. I can see selling other stuff, but there was what's that thing everyone goes on and clicks whether they like beer. There was one set up for it, and it's not had any reviews. So I'm presuming it's all sitting there.
No.
Either in casks or in a big fermenter. Do you know, Lucas?
I'm not really sure, but yeah, he said he cannot get it out in any form right now. So I think I presume he put it on casks, because if it was in a fermenter, he has a way of basically either bottling it or putting in a keg or something.
I think he put it in casks, and he said he'd sold most of it to pubs, and then literally the next day it was like pubs are shut. So yeah, unfortunate timing. It was ready to go.
Is there any way you can bottle from a cask? Does that work? I don't know anything about it.
I don't know. I suggested he oak a few and just see how it turns out. But I think he's been pretty busy selling bottled beer. But I would go get a cask and invite everyone round, but you can't, can you? Right?
Yeah,
So
you can't go selling the bottles now, and
yeah. So yeah, bad timing.
Yeah, I'm planning to go there. Maybe sneak out one evening and just go there because I think he works there almost every day. So
go drink it all, Luke.
Yeah, maybe I'll convince him to open one of the casks to just have a taste. So.
Well,